So we're quite a ways down from the main town site. You can see the chimney way off in the distance, and we're checking out some of these smaller dwelling sites along the main road in Surprise Canyon. And yeah, apparently the town, really did extend all the way down here for, I guess, about a mile, almost a mile maybe. Yeah, and they just had the one main street in the middle, and on each side they had a bunch of dwellings and shops and whatnot. That was back in its heyday. It shrunk to a much smaller size after the mines were abandoned. I think in like the 1880s or something, there's only like 2 people staying here. So we're finally going to explore the town site. We wanted to do this the first day, but we didn't have enough time. But yeah, we're going to go check out the old mill here, and then we're going to hike up to that modern mill, and there's an adit back there called the Lewis Tunnel that we're going to explore. So I figure I should give you guys a little bit of history on Panamint City. So apparently the first prospectors to come up here were Mormons in the 1850s. They left in the 1860s. Some minor prospecting was done, but I guess the area was occupied by Indians and it was a bit too dangerous, so they left. But then in the 1870s, a group of 3 guys, I believe the last names are Jacob, Stewart, and I'm forgetting the last guy, but supposedly they were stagecoach robbers, but that might just be a myth. But anyways, they came up here and discovered a very rich ledge of silver ore. So that got the interest of Nevada Senators Stewart and Jones, who poured a lot of money into these mines. I believe they originally made a fortune off of the Comstock lode, and Panamint City was said to be the next Comstock lode. Well, actually a lot of mining districts were said to be the next Comstock lode, but most of them failed, and this one did too. But yeah, that was in 1873 when the 3 men made the discovery, and several companies formed but were eventually consolidated into the Surprise Valley Mill and Mining Company. And in 1875 that company built this mill and built the tramway down from the Wyoming mine. So this is a very old and historic structure. So yeah, this originally was a 20-stamp mill, and also I believe it was a reduction furnace. That's what they call it. Yeah, something going off that way. Just love that arch. And more of this really cool stonework here. And there's some kind of trestle or loading platform right up there. Not sure what that was for, but let's take a closer look at this chimney. I really like the ornamental design at the top. That's pretty neat. Here's the other side of the chimney, and it looks like there's actually a way in to the furnace itself over here. Anything cool in there?
About what you'd expect. Oh. A square shaft going straight up.
Yeah, look at this shovel here. This was for coals, shoveling coals in here. Yeah, so there's some kind of shovel here, maybe for shoveling charcoal in or wood, because I don't think probably weren't burning coal in here. they maybe made their own charcoal from the wood on the slopes. But yeah. This is inside the furnace. Yeah, so there's another opening that way, and then here's a shot looking all the way up the chimney. That's really cool. Okay, so now we're heading up to this much more modern mill. I'm guessing this one was constructed in around the 1970s, maybe a bit earlier. But looks like a pretty big operation. Okay, so I'm inside this modern mill building, and there's a whole lot of equipment jam-packed in here. You can see there's 2 ball mills, and the middle of them is a rake classifier. And then these right here, I believe these are flotation cells. So they're doing some sort of froth flotation. And the way that works is they add some chemicals, I'm not really sure what, to the crushed ore. And all the precious metals like gold and silver are supposed to actually stick to those chemicals and float up to the top as a froth. And then that froth is collected and it's processed from there. Denver. And then over here, all of these flotation cells empty into this, and we think this is some kind of concentrator to process the froth. Yeah, this is a really cool building. And over here is a shot of the much older mill. So yeah, coming around here you can see everything was driven by electric motors. So that rake classifier, that's used to separate larger rocks from the smaller rocks. So this ball mill right here was the first crusher. Now it empty out into this rake classifier, and then the larger rocks would actually get pulled up by these rakes and sent into the second ball mill to be crushed further. And then the lighter, I guess the silt, would be sent into the froth flotation cells. And yeah, this classifier is really neat. There's really big cranks on it. And there's the grease lines for them. Really neat. Oh.
Hello.
How you doing up there?
Pretty good.
So I climbed up to a little catwalk. Has a pretty good view of the mill. Yeah, so over here is where the ore was dumped into the first ball mill. And you can see there's a scoop in there, and every rotation of the ball mill, it would scoop up ore in this bin, and it would get funneled into the ball mill. So they were automatic feeding, and there's a belt line that runs underneath this ore bin right back over here, and that's filled by another belt line. Oh, and yeah, there's a Sturtevant blower here, and that might actually be pretty old. Really cool. So here we are a bit above the mill. There's that large ore bin, and there's the belt line running over to this jaw crusher that I'm going to go up to momentarily. And then up here is an adit that is known as the Lewis Tunnel. So we'll try to check that out before it gets dark. Okay, so I'm underneath this ore bin, And there's a really interesting feeding mechanism here. So you can see there's an electric motor, and this would rock this rod back and forth, and it would rock this base, you can see it's on wheels, back and forth to shake the ore basically into this jaw crusher over here. Cedar Rapids. Cool. Oh, it says universal crusher. Hope you guys can see that. And I've read that universal crushers were sort of a mix between the Blake style jaw crushers and the the Dodge style jaw crushers, which the mechanism is a bit different. This is kind of a hybrid of those. And there's the chute for to dump the ore out with that rocker thing. And yeah, it's buried with rocks now, but there would be two jaws in there. One of them is fixed and one of them is movable. And the ore would be crushed as those jaws moved. Okay, so we're at the top of the ore bin. And there's a really big grizzly up here. And yeah, it seems pretty sturdy. But this is a pretty good view of the whole mill. Yeah, there's the jaw crusher. It'll be sent down to that other ore bin and then crushed. It'd be floated and then concentrated. So there's a really well-built powder bunker over there. Xavier's checking it out. And I'm gonna go head on in the tunnel. I mean, really it's an adit, but when I read all the mining reports and the maps of the workings, they call them tunnels, so I'm just calling them their historical name. Yeah, this adit was dug originally in the 1920s by the Panamint Mining Company, which was reworking the Wyoming mine. But I have a feeling that it was reworked again. And the goal of this tunnel was to cut the Wyoming vein about 1,000 feet lower than the tramway, the top of the tramway. So I'm at the end of the Lewis Tunnel, and yeah, that was probably about 2,300 feet back here, but this thing is so straight and so true that you can still see the light at the portal. Pretty neat. So there's the old mill, And here's another cabin in Panamint City. I believe this is one of the backup cabins. So if the main one, which they call the Hilton, is occupied, some people stay in here, but apparently it's one of the worst cabins. Death Valley Scotty. And it's not as well decorated as the other cabins, and yeah, you can definitely see rats have been making nests in here. Murder room. Yeah, you see it says here, overflow cabin. So here's a good look at this part of the city. The cabin in the center of the screen is the Hilton. Behind it there's some kind of machine shop, I'm guessing. And then there's this other stone building that must have been really old, but they built newer wooden structures inside of it. And then there's another cabin, actually two cabins right up here that we're gonna check out. So here's this cabin. This one is in a pretty sorry state. And yeah, there's not a whole lot to it. But there's another one right up there to check out. Okay, so here's this other cabin, and this one is much newer, probably in the 70s or 80s maybe, before the road washed away. But yeah, it's not in great shape at all. It's trash, and well, it's not as historic either, so can't be too upset about it, I guess, but has a good view of the mill. So right here we have the foundation of one of the historic buildings here, but inside there's a bunch of small modern buildings around the border, and these were probably for the operation in the 70s. And yeah, this looks like it may have been living quarters. Yeah, a bunch of appliances in there. One of these we think might have been a kitchen. And also one of these we think may have been an assay lab. Because if you look over here, there's a homemade ball mill. So yeah, they're probably crushing rock samples with that. And then in this room, there's a bunch of there's bags of chemicals that they may have used for assaying. So it might be some kind of flux. But yeah, we're not so sure what the historic building was. We're thinking it might be like a general store, or maybe it was the mine offices. We're not 100% sure, but yeah, pretty neat how the new is integrated with the old. So here's the Hilton. We're not going to check inside because someone's staying in there right now. But if we ever return, we'll definitely do a much more thorough job of exploring this cabin. But yeah, here's a quick look at the outside. There's lots of junk art, basically. And well, some of it is actually cool stuff. Like there's a drill column, and this is part of an Ingersoll Rand drill. And yeah, well, this is one of the best cabins to stay at in Panamint City. I'm not sure if this one or the castle is necessarily better, but it's pretty neat. Oh yeah, well, there's where it says Ingersoll Rand.
Yeah. So I think this is the back end. You'd sit here like this, or maybe like this, and drill your holes. Oh my god.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we're just above the Hilton. Right over here you can see the cabins we checked out earlier. And right behind me there's a bunch of equipment. Here we have a pretty neat cement mixer. And right below it we have the bin of an ore car. It's actually a really big ore car. Pretty decent size. There's my shoe next to it. And over here we have a classifier. So this whole thing would shake and the smaller rocks would fall through that grate right there. And it looks like we have a bunch of large electric motors. The cab of a truck. Let's see what else we got. This might be some kind of water pump. It's a Racine. Yeah, I guess this may have been a water reservoir. And some trailers. They look pretty shot up. And a pretty big fuel tank there. So here's another ore car right here, and this one was turned into a trailer by the looks of it. And they're also using a ore car rail. So Xavier's going to demonstrate how to dump the cement mixer. Boom. This building right here looks like some kind of workshop or machine shop. Right here we have a really big generator. It's a Cato generator, and it's attached to a Chrysler Nissan diesel. And then over this way we have a small air blower, and oh, this one's a Sturdivant. Yep, BF Sturdivant. Pretty neat. And right here we have an air compressor. I believe it's a Joy air compressor. Yep. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for this building. Still, gotta love all the equipment that's out here. So here we have another piece off of that Ingersoll Rand drill we saw by the Hilton. And over here, we think we have a jack leg. And so these would be ran off of compressed air, and it would be used to hold up the drills, the air drills, as you're working the face. Okay, well it turns out the group in the Hilton left, so we're gonna go check it out real quick. Here's a look at the front porch. There's a great view of the mill site over there. And here's a look inside. It's actually a lot cleaner than the castle is. But I don't know, I think the castle's a cooler cabin because it has all the historic photos in it and the maps, but this one doesn't really have that. But it would still be a nice place to stay, I think. There's this map.
I'm hoping it shows the mines on it. Where are we?
Right
Oh,
here.
there we go.
It doesn't really.
No. Lists the canyons
Well, it
off.
shows where the water tank is to get the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is hooked up to a water tank, but the connection's broken. I guess there's no running water. There's the back room here. This part of the cabin is much dirtier. Apparently, back in the day, there's a toilet that used to be able to flush. There's enough water for it. Yeah, pretty cool.
Right then. If we came back again, I'd prefer the castle. I don't know
There's a whole bunch of stone walls all around here below the main part of the city. Guessing these were like tent sites maybe. Okay, so here are the Panamint City pictographs, and apparently they aren't that old. I think I read that they were newer than the 1870s, so I'm not really sure what the whole deal with this was. Kind of interesting though. Well, we're on our way back, so I guess I'm going to say farewell to Panamint City, and I would really love to come back here sometime soon and see what we didn't have time to see this trip. This has been awesome. So right here we have some natural caves that were actually turned into little living spaces. We saw these on the way up and decided to check it out on the way back. There's another little cave over there. But yeah, not as big as we thought.